Well, good morning, everyone. After making some breakfast, I headed my way up the canyon. And there's this tree, you can see back behind me there, that I found yesterday, and I wanted to come up to it today and see if I can find a composition for it. And so I got my camera set up, 240mm lens, and I found a composition I like, but the light isn't especially cooperative. The wind is calm, but there are some high clouds out toward the west a little bit, and it's really just making the light on the scene relatively flat. So I know that this can look a lot better if there was some pretty good light on it. And there's another scene further up the canyon with some cracked mud that looked fairly interesting, and the window for good light for that extends quite a ways. And I think the way that the canyon walls are there, I think the high clouds out to the west aren't really going to have as much of a factor, have as much of an impact on the reflected light over there. But I think the smart move is to pack up the camera, not shoot this scene right now, maybe tomorrow, maybe on another trip. This scene probably won't change too much. But the mud scene, it will certainly change, the next time I'm here. Because I only have 4 sheets of film left, and so I do need to budget those sheets of film. And my goal was to expose 2 today, so I'm going to head up the canyon and see if I can put a composition on that scene with the cracked mud. So I don't know how to end this. So I hiked a couple miles or so further up the canyon, and this is a scene that I found yesterday and that I took some scouting photos of. There's some interesting cracked mud that has this almost like a tree-like shape to it. So I've got my camera set up there with my 300mm lens, and the high clouds are still in place. They've actually started to move a little bit more. Now that I'm in a different part of the canyon, I have a better feeling for how it is that they're moving. It's just kind of like this long string of these high clouds, and it is slowly moving off to the east as it's kind of rolling overhead like a big train. And there's a big gap between the clouds and the canyon walls way down canyon, where there's some blue sky and also the setting moon down there. So at the rate that they're moving, I suspect that they will scoot off to the east before my window of light here is over, because I passed through this area yesterday around 10:40. It's about 9:40 right now, and the light was still pretty good at 10:40. So assuming that these clouds move along within the next hour or so, I think it's very likely that I'll be able to photograph this scene. So that'll be pretty good. And I think by the time that other scene that I was at, by the time the clouds would be moved off along over there, I think my window of light would have been over. But I can always try for that one tomorrow if we have blue skies. But we'll see what happens with these clouds. So this guy cooperated. Clouds are long off to the east, and the sunlight is hitting basically right behind the video camera, hitting on some rocks and boulders and stuff, reflecting light down into the scene. So I used my normal 300mm lens and just framed up this composition of this little puddle of cracked mud. But it's got some interesting structure to it, and it's getting some really low angle light. Now I decided not to use a warming filter on this one. I'm not sure if this could benefit from it or not. I mean, a lot of the light is coming from sunlight that's reflecting off of some really orange sandstone. So it is a very warm light, and if it goes a little cool, I think that's probably okay. But I'm still trying to get a feeling for when to use the warming filter and when not to use the warming filter. But that is one more sheet of film exposed, so a total of 5 of my 8 sheets of film are now exposed, leaving me with 3 more photos. Now I have a afternoon subject in mind, kind of like a more of an early evening subject, so long as the skies stay blue, but we'll see. And also, there's kind of a cool subject on the hike out of here, and so if I leave one sheet of film to shoot that one on the hike out tomorrow, that could be good. So in reality, I really should take maybe 1 more photo today. I could do 2, but 1 is probably a safer bet. But definitely a good morning, and shows the importance of being patient, because things have a tendency to change, and you wait around long enough and things usually work out pretty well. But it feels great to expose some film. So it is a little after 2 o'clock. I went back to camp, I made some lunch, and the light is very harsh right now. But other than that, the conditions are great. So the skies are completely blue, there's a nice breeze, and the way that this canyon is situated, there's not a lot of deep bends to the canyon that see reflected light at midday. Some canyons are such that there's some real deep bends to the canyons and they're just in the shade all day long. But this one, a lot of the trees, a lot of subjects just are in harsh light at the moment. But these are the sort of conditions I was really hoping for in the month or so that I was just watching the weather before coming here. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to make it here before the heat of summer comes in. And I have 2 potential subjects to photograph a little later in the afternoon and into the evening. They're both subjects that I found last year, and also was able to find a pretty good time as far as when the light is good on them. So long as the clouds stay away, and so long as the wind is, reasonably calm, I think I'll have some opportunities for doing that. But it is just so absolutely beautiful here today. mild breeze, blue skies, and looking forward to what I'm able to find as the day progresses, but this sure is nice. So I've got a subject here, this rock with this kind of trail from the water as it flowed through here. But right now, the main thing is the light. There are some puffy little clouds up there, and one of them is casting a shadow on the big canyon wall back behind the camera. And when there's a shadow on that, then the light gets really dull right here. So I'll need to time this so that everything around here is in sun, and there really isn't much in the way of clouds up top, because that also reflects light down in the shadows. So I think it'll happen, but I just have to stay vigilant and look for that opportunity when the light is doing what I want it to do. So we'll see. So I went back to camp for a little bit, grabbed some water, grabbed some snacks, and I still had, I don't know, an hour or so to kill until coming over here to my potential evening subject. And as I was walking away from my tent, I reached in my pocket to lock it, because just, habits from walking away from my Forerunner. But this is my potential evening subject. It's this pretty cool bush here, which is reminiscent of a photo I shot back in 2009. But I love how the bush is sitting atop this sandy bank, and then there are some roots hanging down. And so that's kind of cool. And then off in the background, some really, really nice layers of sandstone. And what I really need to have happen is these clouds, there's just a little bit of clouds overhead, but I need them to dissipate. And what's going to happen is that the sun is going to bounce off the big canyon wall back behind the video camera and send warm light into the scene. And I walked past this scene yesterday after taking the photo with the boulders and the cottonwoods, and it was in really, really good light, and that was still quite a ways from now. So I know I have a pretty significant window to work with. Wind is a little bit less of an issue for this one, just because with the cottonwoods, the leaves really flutter in the slightest of a breeze. The sage isn't quite as affected. It's actually quite still right now. But let's hope that these clouds dissipate and we get some good light. So we'll see on that. And also, if I am able to expose a sheet of film on this, that leaves me with one sheet of film, which I am saving for a subject on the hike out tomorrow as I head back to the trailhead. So it'd be pretty cool to head back to my truck having shot all 8 sheets of film with only one scene being doubles, which was the scene yesterday evening. So we'll see what happens with the clouds. Well, close enough. It's not going to be great. But it's important that I see how this composition looks. I had most of the reflected light. There's a little bit of clouds up there. But sometimes I see this as a bit of a sketch just to see how much I like a particular composition. But we'll see. And that's one sheet of film left. So just after exposing that sheet of film, the clouds really started to build in again. And the light was snuffed out. And even though it wasn't as bold of reflected light as I was hoping for, you know, it was decent, and it allowed me to get a feel for how the photo works, how the composition works. But I suspect that it's a scene that I'll be able to do better with next time. But now it's time to head back to camp. Time to relax a little bit, to make some dinner. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to head back to the trailhead. And there's this kind of cool looking juniper that's very triangular, set against a wall with some desert varnish that should be in some nice reflected light in the morning. So we'll see if I can get a composition on that scene. But shooting 3 different scenes in a day, it's pretty good, especially for a backpacking trip. But I'm definitely looking forward to a good night's sleep.
Although the weather was pleasant enough that evening, I'm glad it was yesterday I chose to photograph the cottonwood between the round boulders. The skies were clear when I took that photo, resulting in warm reflected light. But on this evening, clouds to the west resulted in flat light. As such, I'm not overly excited about the photo I took of the sagebrush. The light is flat and the composition could use some work as well. There's a lot of potential, but that'll have to wait until my return visit next year. I'm also not overly excited about my photo of the rock with the trail in the mud. To be perfectly honest, I didn't have high regard for this scene while photographing it, but it gave me something to do in the shade while killing time. I am, however, quite satisfied with the first photo I took that day, the dried puddle of mud. I like the branching nature of the cracks and how toward the top of the photo, dried raindrops are visible in the surface of the mud. It may not be my strongest photo from this trip, but I enjoyed my time taking it. And the low-angle reflected light adds so much depth. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you around next time.
You may have noticed this video has no ads and no sponsors, and I think it's nicer that way. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution through PayPal or by joining my Patreon helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. You can find more information by visiting my website at benhorne.com/donate. I also have prints, ebooks, and my annual portfolio is available on my website. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you around next time.